This is Lunchtime Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Let's bring you up to speed with what's happening in politics and in the polity. A possible alignment and realignment may be in the works as politicians beyond party lines converge on the Social Democratic Party Secretariat in Abuja for a meeting with Nasser El-Rufai, Hamza Al-Mustafa and Segun Showunmi as some of those in attendance. And President Bola Tinubu sympathizes with the military over the death of 6 soldiers during a terrorist attack at an army base in Damboa, Borno State. Thanks again for joining us on the program. We'll bring you up to speed at midday with what's going on in the polity and in politics. So we'll call it the midday gateway into the polity. But let's start on perhaps this is on a very solemn note where the president sympathized with the military authorities following the loss of 6 brave soldiers during a dawn terrorist attack on an army base in Sabongida, Damboa, Borno State. The president commiserated with the families of the fallen soldiers whose sacrifices in defending the nation, he said, will forever be honored and remembered. In a statement by Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Nanuga, President Tinubu called for a thorough investigation and commended the armed forces for their swift and decisive responses, particularly air component in launching effective retaliatory strikes, while asking them to be proactive, taking the war to the camps of bandits and terrorists. The president also appealed to Nigerians and the media to support the military's effort to restore peace and security in the nation. And away from that, to some other stories from just talks and nuances, we're now seeing meetings of political figures across party lines now raising questions as to what's in the works. Key political figures, including former Kaduna State Governor Nasser El-Rufai and allies of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Segun Showunmi, was also a spokesperson in the campaign. Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, who is an ex-presidential candidate and former Chief of Security Officer to the late Sani Abacha, held a private meeting with the leadership of the Social Democratic Party in Abuja. The closed-door meeting, which took place at the SDP National Secretariat, has sparked speculations about potential political alignment or realignment ahead of the 2027 general elections. Although the specifics of this agenda of the meeting was not disclosed, it is being perceived as a broader strategy to forge alliances among opposition figures with the aim of presenting a formidable challenge to President Bola Tinubu in the next election cycle. Well, this is how the SDP chairman, Mr. Shehu Gabam, summarized what we're looking at.
The government doesn't want to listen. They believe they have monopoly of knowledge and wisdom. And any individual that believes he has acquired monopoly of knowledge and wisdom, then you feel sorry for him. So we are here to socialize, discuss current national issues. What do we do? What advice can we still provide to this government? Probably if you have listened to them, they spoke along these lines, that nobody wants to pull down the roof of the government. What we are all after is for this government to succeed so that we can also have ease of life by virtue of pressures of citizens that are looking for food, looking for water, looking for shelter, looking for protection. And then the boomeranging effects comes directly to some of us who are being considered as elite, even though we are not. Nigeria is at the crossroads, politically, economically, socially. People are looking for shelter somewhere because largely the umbrella do not provide shelter for everyone. The broom is not sweeping the dirty grounds anymore. So people are looking for an environment that protect them, give them a sense of belonging, give them a sense of entitlement, give them that the Constitution has provided.
All right, so what exactly is going on in the polity? We cannot speak for the people that were there. So one of the persons that was there in that meeting joins me right now on Lunchtime Politics. Joining us from Abuja studio is Mr. Segun Showunmi. Mr. Showunmi, is a former governorship aspirant of the PDP in Ogun State, spokesperson of the presidential candidate of the PDP in the last election, and a PDP leader. Mr. Showunmi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year, Channel's crew and the entire audience.
Happy New Year to you. So, Mr. Showunmi, this is the way the New Year starts. With this, so would have used the word opposition easily if we didn't see Nasser El-Rufai in the mix. So what exactly is going on, Mr. Showunmi?
Well, thank you. Shogaban, one of the people who obviously have also been in the political space as a leader, especially managing the Social Democratic Party, which is also one of the legacy parties, if you remember the days of MK Abiola and the Junto struggle, had invited some of us that he considered to have consistently demonstrated a desire that this country should work and work well. And ironically, you saw the pictures and the rushes of those that were there. To that extent, it was a friendly meet and greet and review what's going on in the country, taking opinions, and just small banters. The part that I can add is this. I know that people are thinking that, oh, does that mean that people are going to that party? Have they started a serious alliance towards 2027 and all that? I would just say that 2027 is still very much further down the road. Yes, but people are discussing based on the issues that everybody is bringing from all the nooks and crannies of the country. And I know that one of the persons that gave people the greatest, if you like, surprise there was Malam Nasser El-Rufai. And since he's an APC leader and my good self, since I'm a PDP person, that were there. I would say on behalf of Malam Nasser, even though he has the ability to speak very much for himself, I would just make a poser. If you had been Nasser El-Rufai and contributed the little you contributed to creating the momentum that produced the APC ab initio, participated in that APC until you had an 8 years of Buhari, himself being also a governor in Kaduna, did the little or the much he did to ensure that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is now president, and then also ensure that the party retained Kaduna, you can ask yourself if even the bit you know about how he has been treated, if it's enough for you to now be asking why will Nasser be talking to people. But it's for Malam Nasser El-Rufai to make up his mind what precisely he considers his political future. But I was very upfront with him that he does not have the privilege of a holiday when we have so many issues that we want to deal with in the country. Right now, he's busy with studies in Egypt, so he says. And for me, I noticed that people, of course, usually will say, Atiku's ally, I am his ally, I am his friend, I'm his, even if you like, you can even call me his boy, because he's older than me by far. But Atiku Abubakar has not again told me that he's running the next election, so it's too early to start saying Atiku is going to do this, Atiku is going to do that. I will only say it is within his right to decide his political future, and I'm sure at the right time he will more than likely, I hope, call me and tell me, Segun, this is what I'm thinking, and I can tell him what I'm thinking. But I was there majorly as somebody who has been promoting a platform called The Alternative. And I need to tell you very clearly, The Alternative is not a political party. It's just a platform that believes we should go back and have a renewed conversation with the electorate and the citizens of the country in a bid to increase their ability to tarry a little bit, believe in the democracy, recognize their role in it, and then be hopeful of a united country. Because with due respect to those that are handling our country today, if they haven't done anything bad, they have ensured that this country now has to be looking at things from the point of view of tribalism. It's almost as if we don't have nationalists anymore in the country. And someone like me, who have always tried to be a nationalist all my life, I thought that it was best we now began to create the avenue for us to have that dialogue. Why should people be in a democracy and be feeling frustrated when they can always vote out or at least vote in or do whatever they want on election day? Why are they not turning up? Why is the democratic process excessively so monetized that it's beginning to resemble that the mass of the people will not even have access? Shall Nigeria become a one-party state? Of course, that's not going to happen. What are we going to do with the big parties, if you like, if they don't seem to see that their responsibility as the first safeguard in the democracy is to work on themselves so that they can then, present better ideas to the country. These are the kinds of big ideas that I'm running, and that's why I'm there. So the conversation is on. Yeah. If they are worried, they should be. If they are nervous, they should be. People in the country, anyone who manages to get himself into the presidency of Nigeria in the villa has three things he has to keep remembering, no matter what he says he's doing on the job. The first is he has to remember that he didn't get himself into the villa by himself, all by himself alone. Therefore, when you start to say people are not relevant, people are dispensable, be careful that you may be dispensed with. The second thing he has to manage, in my opinion, is that you have to figure out how to ensure that the generality of the people in the country can feel a sense of belonging and an inclusion in whatever you're doing. And then first, of course, the most important, which is the third, is that Nigerians must truly believe they are being served and being served well. You cannot narrate your way out of the challenges that people see. So on those bases, I think they should be nervous. If they are not nervous, then they'll be a bit childish.
All right, I'm happy you landed on that thought, which I'm going to stay with the politics for a while, and I'll come to the agenda or the alternative, which you've mentioned in passing. When we listen to that soundbite by Mr. Gabam Shehu, where he mentioned the fact that the umbrella can no longer cover, the broom can no longer sweep effectively, it begins to... What do we make of the characterization in that particular phrase? I know you may still be saying it's early, but we watch political spaces and politicians make moves. It's now for you to interpret to us what was happening in that room based on that assertion.
Okay, well, people use adjectives the best way they can to communicate, but I am not exactly sure that you could say that the party that symbolizes the broom will not be a party. Clearly, they're in government, they have governors, they have all of that. So whatever we say, there will be a force in that election. I think that for the PDP, which is the umbrella, I think that we are a party of 9 lives. Sometimes when people say we're done and over with, they'll just find out that the elections are done and we are probably going to be the one that will have been cheated out of our victory, and we still have the ability to sort of get together. I think that everybody in Nigeria is nervous. They're nervous, and I am too, along the line that there's a conversation that is being whispered, which may suggest that there is a grand design by those who are in charge of the levers of authority of our country, the presidency, to foist a one-party state on us by having their hands as the hand of Esau, the voice of Jacob, destabilizing political parties, the PDP, Labour, and what have you. Well, I think that those who believe that that's what's going on, I'm not contesting their belief with them, but I've always been an apostle of repair yourself on the inside. Take responsibility for your own actions and inaction, and stop blaming others for things that you can easily do by yourself. And it is in that regard that I've been telling the PDP, you need to reform first before you start talking about the next election. You need to rethink yourself. You need to look for the big middle. You can't be this versus this. You can't continue with that. You've run 3 elections and you've lost. You need to stop assuming that elections are easy. And in the meantime, while they are still busy being at, clawing themselves, I've then thought, okay, let's go back to the people, and created that alternative, which is a pan-Nigerian opposition party, because obviously we're not in government, and accepting and saying, okay, everybody, let's even have this conversation. What type of democracy are we running, and what kind of country do we want to run?
Let's create that nexus quickly that you mentioned on that alternative, because you, on this platform, had mentioned the fact that one of the headaches that the PDP has is the fact that the president had brought in Sowunmi into his fold, and you dared the president to say, fire him and see what will happen. So help us with the nexus of that position you took, as well as the position of the alternative, given what is going on in your party.
Well, one of the things that demonstrates the character of a leader is really the things he tolerates that he ought not to tolerate. I hold very sacrosanktly that some of the excess of the people in the political space, people that are appointees of the President Wike and co, and the things they do, the language, the lack of respect for everybody and anybody, the desire to just be in your face, excessively garrulous, and then being an appointee of the president, I hold the view that every decent leader must be a little bit offended or maybe at least uncomfortable, because you can't sit in a nation where the likes of Odili now must begin to appear little because somebody that is much younger than them. We are Africans, we have our own culture. However much we are copying Europeans, there are still some lines that you don't want to cross. You don't want to allow a younger person to be overtly too rude and calling out leaders that are older. And unfortunately, he has Wike on his side now. It's for him to say, oh, Wike, I've come to a point where you need to come to APC if you want to be in APC, or go back to your party or whatever. But if you see a leader allying an idea that obviously we all can tell is wrong, that one of the forces in one of the major parties can be with him, be speaking about the next election in an affirmative action or being with him, and yet at the same time not leaving or cutting loose the apron string of the other party, you kind of like feel that, okay, if they can't do it themselves, a leader must elevate his character to the level of saying, in my country, under my watch, this type of thing won't be allowed. But obviously, I mean, they've not broken any law. I must be upfront. It's within their right of association. He has the rights and the privileges to appoint whoever he wants to appoint in his cabinet. But the truth of the matter is that it is for PDP and nobody else to fix himself and say, no, this kind of thing won't be tolerated here. This is the legacy party of more than 27 years. We're not going to allow any caricature to just kind of like make the party unpleasant, even to the people who are listening to what's going on about the party. That was in the context that I meant, that fire him, and you will see that he'll come back to the party, they'll resolve themselves, and then leadership will be provided in the way that we have always been. Losing an election is not the end of the world. Destabilizing political parties is much more a bigger problem than even losing an election.
If I hear you correctly, Mr. Showunmi, and some of the things you're trying to push with the alternative, it appears you're saying this government, and they're not listening. What exactly are you saying, or you feel that the people are saying that the Bola Tinubu administration is not paying attention to and may likely cost him politically, if you will?
Okay, thank you. But I wasn't really saying they are not listening. That's not what I'm saying. The whole concept of the alternative is that I want us to engage ourselves differently. I want the conversation of even the opposition to be a little bit more measured. I do not accept the style of Peter and his gang, where the only thing they like to do is harvest misery and propel misery and push misery into the society. You can't run a country of extremely poor people that way. That's too much. You have to think about the psychology of your people. All nations go through things. So you can be an opposition figure like me that says, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with this. Okay, this we get, but rather you did it like this, rather than someone who's just a harbinger of frustration, anger, and never see anything good in the country. I thought that we can start having an alternative way of engaging that. I also thought we could have an alternative way of even looking at the government and its policy and its intention. But even more importantly, I thought that there could be an alternative way of having the conversation of, we don't agree with government, but we necessarily do not make it into a gaslighting of any of the races, not of the Yoruba race, which I belong, not of the Hausa, not of the Igbos and other. It's just a desperate attempt to tell us that if we are to continue with this democracy as we are, then we must find a better way to communicate with ourselves. We must be for our country at all time. Anybody who is president who has only but a term, what is certain is that he's president today. Nobody has guaranteed him the next election, and certainly nobody has guaranteed him even the one after that. So in that context, you must figure out a way to make sure that you go back to the electorate and re-engage them on what this democracy ought to mean and how people ought to behave here, so that while they are still governing or misgoverning, we can still preserve the idea of our country without necessarily allowing everything to go up in flame. That's really what we're trying to do with the alternative, and we've been doing quite well with it. We're on our way to Port Harcourt now, where we're going to have the zonal town hall meetings for the South-South. We have done that of the North Central. We did that in Jos. We've done that of the Northwest. We did that in Kano. We did that of the Northeast. We did that in Bauchi. These are the kinds of ideas that we're playing with.
Okay, so let's talk about one issue that I feel that I know you're very competent to speak to, and you are very familiar with it, and that has to do with the cost of living. And I'm sure when you're rallying this consensus or this idea of people looking at a better way to engage the government, even from the opposition end, cost of living is still killing. It appears a lot of people are already cooked. What's your view as to that effect, if you are to make your own comment and your 2 cents on the matter?
I think that I wish you had more than 2 cents. There are 4 areas I wanted us to talk about where the government is not doing well.
Go ahead, Mr.
First of all, I don't like the idea. Yeah, thank you. I don't like the idea that the concept of budgeting with them in the new year does not include budget performance of the previous year, so that we can even see where and who got what was funded and what was not. I don't like that, and I think that we need to demand that budget performance of the previous year is more important for us than your highfalutin ideas of what you call your next budget. I don't like that. The other one is that I think that the federal government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu do not understand the concept of why we always called ourselves the giant of Africa. Our concept of giant of Africa must, in terms of foreign policy, must necessarily include that we cannot be siding with colonialists anywhere against our African brothers. Yes, a coup has taken place in some of those locations, but our duty as the giant of Africa is to be the big brother interfering and mediating between them and their partners in Europe. We cannot be seen under whatever guise to now be the one that is running into the bedroom of France, whereas our brothers and our longtime allies are saying enough. So I think that they got that wrong. The other one is that I think that the federal government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu doesn't understand that there is no fancy way to speak to people who can't feed, who can't transport themselves, who can't do the basic things of life. That the only thing that he should be interested in is bringing down the cost of food inflation and ensuring that it gets to the market quickly. He can't run a big economy on a feeding bottle idea that is extended, beginning to resemble a beggar bowl economy. By beggar bowl economy, I mean he thinks he can just roll out palliative instead of dealing with the issues that can allow the people to fend for themselves. And then the most guilty of what he has done to the country, in my opinion, is that even to those who are working with him, he has treated the Nigerian estate in leadership as though he's the alpha ego, alpha male. Everybody is dispensable but himself. People who work very hard, even to keep him in power, it doesn't matter how they are, because he's in charge now, and therefore a lot of his aides, I read their comments on social media, give the annoying impression as though an election that is not yet called has been counted and has been won. But I can tell him for free, democracy is very tough. Men like Awolowo did not win with all their effort. Men like Abiola truly had a lot of challenges. People have stood, better men have stood for presidency and they've not won it. If you are lucky to win it on first round, you better be careful to look at those who worked very hard, on whose backs that was easy. But it's just business. We are in opposition. Our job is to clean up ourselves. Our job is to have the conversation in a manner that we can at least effectively provide a position and be preparing for the future. So we'll see how it goes, but I can guarantee you one thing though, the alternative is here to stay, and we'll push very hard to re-educate our people, to tell them about the danger of vote buying and vote selling, to let them understand that they are the giants, they are the kings, they are the queens, they are the princes and princesses on election day. It's too big a bargain for them to sell the vote. Those are the kinds of things we're doing. Right, we're working as hard as we can, so help us God. All
right, Mr. Showunmi, you've mentioned the issue of budget, foreign policy posture, inflation, and perhaps his personal posturing as to understanding what the job is and is able to do it. But when he says things like, this pain is temporary, is going to be better tomorrow, do you believe him? The reason I'm saying this is that the only collateral, if I speak from a business point of view, the only collateral he's putting forward to that effect for us is, I promise you it's going to get better. And then his legacy in Lagos. But do you believe the president?
You know, the painful thing about even that legacy in Lagos is that you need to look at the population of Lagos and ask how many of them are really served well relative to the fancy ideas of private sector that is running around the Lekki-Ikoyi corridor that can give you dirty December and such kind of thing. But, you know, you can't design a 250 million country only for your friends, the rich, or the private sector people like, if you like, I like to call him Rockefeller, Dangote, and his gang. The business of government is to figure out how to solve the problem of the mass of the people. Yes, you can bring us numbers that says that without checking about the exchange rate or before you start cooking out what constitutes unemployment and all of those statistical gymnastics they are doing, the truth of the matter is that the leader of a nation, a sub-Saharan nation like ours, must be concerned about the poverty of the mass of the people. And we're not going to find it with his friends in Lagos. Neither are we going to find it with his private sector neoliberal partner. Neither are we going to find it if he's running the country as though he is incapable of hearing or listening or feeling or empathizing with the pain that we see when we go out. Nobody is interested in destabilizing the country, like I said. Nobody is interested in shaming Nigeria. I've always campaigned against that. Nobody is interested in the president not being able to do the job of the presidency. But what we're saying is that this one term that you have gotten, put it to work. And we don't have the time for this. You're waiting in vain for a promise that seems never to come. They have been devaluing our currency steadily and continuously since 1972, but nobody has ever devalued it to the extent that the Bola Tinubu government has devalued it. It's practically cleaned out people's savings, and it's practically made life unbearable for the mass of our people. That's it.
Yeah, Mr. Showunmi, there's one question I'll ask you before I let you go, and it has to do with Section 14, I think Section 3 or 4 of the Constitution, that talks about when you are forming a nation or forming your team in cabinet, you should give everybody a sense of belonging. Do you think that that is also some sort of shortfall in this government as far as this is concerned?
I was the very first to come here. I think one of the programmers, Akimbaloye's program, when at the beginning of that cabinet, I queried and I questioned why some people would get so much and the Southeast would get only 5. And I queried with why a section of the country would be in charge of all the finance infrastructure, all the revenue infrastructure, most of the spending infrastructure. I queried it. The reason why I queried it is not because I don't accept my Yorubaness, but I just thought that if we're running a multi-dimensional, multi-ethnic, multi-tribal, multi-language country, the duty of the president is to make everybody have a sense of belonging. You can't be explaining policy to me when I was not represented. You can't shave the head of the North behind them. Neither can you do that to any other region. So you can't have a country where, whatever it is worth, Yoruba men are feeling like they are the owners of this regime, and they're doing it in such a manner that you can't even compare it to the fairness that the Buhari regime has done. Because when Buhari was in charge, I know that a significant section of the economy and all that was balanced out. But what have you done? You have taxation, you have revenue, you have CBN, you have finance, you have cost. Come. No. I said that early. I don't like the concept of flogging a dead horse. I've said that. I still insist. I'm disappointed in him that when he had the opportunity of a cabinet reshuffle, he didn't rejig it to give everybody a sense of belonging. You know what that does is that it makes us struggle to be Nigerians. When you talk in the midst of our northern brothers, they take it with a pinch of salt. Do I blame them? If you give them reason to be a little bit suspicious, why would they not be? When you talk in the midst of our southeastern brother, they take it with a pinch of salt. But I have been here all my life, screaming and shouting, we can run Nigeria together, we can all be Nigerian, let's be fair to ourselves, and I'm a Yoruba man. Am I going to have a target on my back because the president is a Yoruba man and is not doing the right thing relative to balancing the country as it should?
And so, very great point you've made, and this conversation is an ongoing one. We'll check in with the alternative time and again to see the progress, but at the end of the day, it's about getting the nation to work for all of us. I must thank you for coming through at short notice, Mr. Segun Showunmi, a PDP leader, former governorship aspirant in Ogun State, and the leader of the alternative. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Happy New Year once again.
Same to you. And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.